Today we're going to focus on the magic O word, offers.
I want to get away. I want to fly away.
What's up, guys? Welcome to this week's McInnes Marketing Minute. This week we are going to frustrate some people, huh?
Arrogant sellers.
Arrogant sellers. So our conversation today is quite literally on that. Arrogant sellers. Last week was more about expectation versus reality when it comes to listing your property. Today we're going to focus on the magic O word, offers. See what I did there?
So tell them about this week, last week, and the double unit.
Yeah, this is painful. So last week we had a buyer who, a little bit of preamp first. We had a buyer who was interested in purchasing 2 units. Now, what was interesting about these units, Jay?
They were owned by the same seller. They were 2 side-by-side units owned by this one seller. So the seller has got both units on the market. Obviously, the easiest process forward for them would be for one buyer to come and purchase them both collectively, and same completion date, same aspect of the offers, and so on and so forth, instead of one group buying one, obviously, and one the other, and staggering the whole thing, and more agents and more people and blah blah blah.
So they're side by side next to each other. A bit more preamble. They've been on the market for 8 months over the past year.
Of course.
And we had a buyer who was interested in purchasing both. So one buyer purchasing them both. We respectively put in an offer for each of them. The prices that we put through the justification, which we're always talking about, to justify that. And they were very fair. It wasn't like we just want a discount. It was very fair.
The PDF on the front of the contracts outlining the active and sold comparable units, prices per foot, market variance from where they are to reality, for lack of better words, very clearly. So not only the agent, but the sellers directly can see our justification. Not that we're just coming in under asking, but this is why.
Yeah, it's a very fair offers. We're not looking to mug anyone off, and we know the market, so we're expecting a bit of negotiations, take back and forth, and we're prepared for that. So we put through the pricing with the justification PDF as mentioned. We put a subject to sale on there, which is very common in this market. And they'd been on for 8 months, 0 offers in that 8 months, and it took them less than an hour to shoot that down. They actually countered us at full asking price, completely removed our subject to sale. For those of you who don't know, you can add a clause to subject to sale, which is an out clause, and it basically, that's exactly what it is. So if they get an equivalent or better offer, they can ditch our offer and they can go for this better offer and take that one. So it's a win-win in both scenarios for them. Wouldn't even entertain that at all, wouldn't even take it on board. Just cross that out completely, full asking price.
What was the justification for the full asking?
They don't need to sell.
Oh yeah.
They don't need to sell. So naturally, there's so much on the market. Our client has decided that they do not want to counter that, as they're not going to be realistic. And so we're looking at properties elsewhere. But back to that line.
Glorious.
Back to that line of they don't need to sell, or I just need to get a certain number. What is that, Jay?
Oh, the arrogance.
Yeah, also known as BS. So this is probably going to be our first point where we frustrate some of you, especially sellers out there. If this is you, if it strikes a chord, there's probably a reason why, sorry. But if you're coming into this market saying, if I can get a certain number, I'm good, or I don't need to sell, it's complete BS. It's a buyer's market right now. This is not your market. If that's the case, don't sell, hold, make the money through rentals or something, and then pop your property on the market when the market is hot and make a ton of money that way. If you're trying to play the game right now and saying that, it's...
Unfortunately, it will not work right now.
Yeah, so for example, these guys who came back with this offer and said they don't need to sell, they've been on the market for 8 months. Somebody who doesn't need to sell, who keeps their place on the market for 8 to 12 months, 8 out of the 12 months, and I don't know. We could spend a whole hour talking about that.
I mean, anyone can list for as long as they want at whatever they want, but if there's actually an expectation, you've hired an agent to represent you and move forward, if you actually want to sell, the number one value of that agent is to not have a yes man or woman on the other end of the conversation. It's to objectively say this is the market value, if you like it or not, and this is the justification with active and sold comparables, because that's what the buyers are looking at. The buyers all have agents now to the rule changes as of last year, so they have people working for them, making sure that they're paying market value and not last year's market value, and all that information is public. So if you just have a highly, say, escalated price from market, there's just no relevance to anything. It's not the climate that people are just going to buy it because they believe it's going to be worth more tomorrow.
Yeah, so arrogance typically comes in three forms that we find. So the first one is almost ignorance, where it's you have the numbers in front of you and you have that justification telling you where you should be, but nope, I want to do my own thing and I'm going to get this one. Second one is you're unwilling to see reason or negotiate. So if you're going in saying, this is what I want, this is all I want, I will not accept anything else, whether that be price, closing dates, subjects, listing price. And then the third one, and probably the most dangerous one, is where you get personal. So I'm sure some of you out there have tried to sell your home before. You've got an offer through that you think is a lowball, and you've been so insulted by it. You've said, no, I'm not countering. I'm not even going down that road. That is taking it personally because you're thinking that that person is making an insult to you. Don't forget, this person is 9.9 times out of 10 never met you, doesn't know anything about you, your circumstances, has no reason to get at you, as the kids say. That's millennials. That's millennials.
Yes.
Podcast from way back. Watch that. But they have no reason to try and get at you at all. They are just in a buyer's market and they're trying to take advantage of a buyer's market. Obviously, if your property is worth $1 million and somebody comes in at 500,000, that's a different story. But if the numbers are justifying the figures in which they're coming out at, taking that as an insult is not going to help you, it's only going to hinder you.
Yeah, so always remember, and very easy for us to say yes, but always remember that once you decide to sell your home, it's now a product on a shelf. The more emotion you have to it because you renoed it the way you want or you've detailed it the way you want is really only going to hurt you in the long run, because you're going to start to take things personally. They don't see the value in this that I did or that. That's definitely not the way to maximize in this market. And to Ben's use of the word lowball before, working with buyers in this market, when asking sellers a lot of the time, they're saying we've had offers but they've been lowballs. So that's a very quickly thrown around word with very little perspective or value a lot of the time, I find. And is it a lowball based on your asking price? Is it a lowball based on the actual market value? The best way to get to the bottom of all of that is sellers, if your listing agent comes to you and says, we're expecting an offer in an hour, tell your listing agent, tell them to justify what they're putting forward, or we don't want to know about it. Like Ben said, if you're at $1 million and they offer 500 and clearly it's worth 900, it's a waste of everyone's time getting that $500,000 offer and trying to negotiate it. So like we did with the double offer, putting the PDF at the front of the offer saying this is why we're offering this. Tell your listing agent to tell the buyer's agent, put a PDF in the front and justify their number. If they can't, then you know it's a waste of time. If they can and it all makes sense, it's a pretty good, within reason of course, things can be skewed, but it's probably a pretty good reason why, as long as they're using the most comparable, which you'll know anyway because your agent will have shown you that, why they're coming in at that number, and that very well may be market value. When you go back to them to counter, do the exact same thing. This is why we're countering back. Not we don't need to sell, or we don't have to sell, or we only will at our number. Say this is where the market is based on these comparables, and this is why we're coming back to that. You too can put knowledge into the mind of your potential buyer. So in our case, when they simply said we don't need to sell, full asking or nothing, they've disregarded our client circumstance of wanting to get a subject to sale in, which they could very well have adjusted. So saying we don't care about your circumstance and full asking, it's kind of, again, it's laughable because they've had nothing in 8 months, and in under an hour they totally shot us out of the water with no justification. But if they don't need to sell, fair enough. You're just kind of wasting everyone's time by being on the market. But you can also try and educate the client, your buyer, and ask your agent to get the justification on the offers coming in.
Yeah, and we sound like we're being really, I don't want to say forceful, we're not, the aim is to not frustrate. What we want to do is we just want to keep it real and get you results, because we're not in this business and you're not in the business of listing your home just to do property tourism and show people it and have some pictures out there. We assume that if you're listing your property, you're actually doing it to try and get a result, and that's exactly what we want for you. And so that's why we're just telling it to you straight. As to our last podcast, you need to be told what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. So use the numbers, guys, because the numbers are there to guide you to success. See what you can be negotiable with. If it's not priced, then it's not priced. Maybe you can be negotiable with subjects or closing dates and things like that. And 3, remember, it's not personal. It's just a transaction, and you're just coming to an agreement. If you don't like what they've put forward, you just put what you want, and if they're not going to agree to that, then they're not going to agree to that. Just be aware of the numbers. Realize that the more negotiable you can be. Wow. And don't take it personal. But guys, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. As always, you're clapping me.
I am Jay McInnes at Instagram.
Real Benjamin Robinson. See you next week. You're weird, man.
I want to get away. I want to fly.